that's going to be an interesting one to take a closer look at, because whether you're doing guest access or not, you should be looking at this change. We have a few things around, what do we got there? Sending some pages to Yammer from SharePoint so that you can have rich text and news, rich previews and stuff. And some translation for Outlook for Windows. We'll roll that intro. I'm with you, Daniel. When I say rich text and rich this and that, I've always sort of thought, what's rich about this? It's bold, italic, underline, bullets. Just don't make me do it in markup.
Yeah, that's, well, compared to like Notepad, I guess that's rich, but
yeah,
you know. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
And welcome to this episode. This is show number 174. That seems like a high number. Welcome, everyone. I'm Daniel Glenn, and that's Darrell Webster. I'm pointing at him on the video. Nope. Oh, other way. Anyway, how are you doing?
Video is definitely confusing sometimes when it appears to be facing the other way. Does anyone else get kind of confused with that when you fire up a pre-live for joining a Teams meeting? And I mean, apart from it being a bit grainy, but which way am I facing? We should say hello to the people in the room. Hello, Suzanne. Hello, Phil. Hello, Ian. And a few others watching too. Good to see you back, Ian. Oh, he didn't say anything. Sorry about that.
Well, he's a couple seconds behind. Give him a break now.
I know, yeah. Enough rambling, hey?
Yeah, let's get to it. So our first message, Darrell, is all about Teams and the iPad. I'm actually excited about this, and I'll tell you why, but take it away, sir.
Yeah, live events. Probably been doing a lot of them if you have that capability turned on, whether it be internally or sometimes you're using Teams live events to get a message across to your customers and present that, hosting and entertaining people. For this message, MC228 362, Microsoft Teams will allow us shortly to be able to use our iPad to present in a live event. Till now, we've had to join via the Windows desktop app or Mac desktop app. And within a live event, it's not just about joining to watch, but you actually have to come into a special meeting experience for Teams. We call it pre-live or a production environment, where you might have seen it demonstrated in some videos. You've got what you want to present next, and a person, their video, content, or video and content. Pretty simple scenes. But this is a big deal because it's the first, advancement on where we can join from. And being able to join from an iPad to present content is pretty amazing. Now, you said you're excited about this. Why is that, Daniel?
Well, because I like to speak at events, and we have gotten really used to this, speaking remotely and doing presentations with Teams, and being able to not only hook up more devices and not have to be, tethered to your desktop or laptop while you're presenting, but have another device, but then be able to demo using, information, but being able to present, I think, just from that iPad and being able to use your laptop or your desktop or whatever for the Teams. I'm just excited about having that flexibility, I guess I should say. That's the way I should say this. Having that flexibility and we saw some of this, I think, coming when we talked about it on the show a few weeks back on how you can join a Teams meeting on your phone. For instance, you're walking into the building and you're maybe running late, and so you're walking in the building, you join on time, and then when you sit down at your desk, you can join that meeting via your desktop or laptop and it just switched seamlessly, and you could say add this device or switch to this device. So
Mm,
we're kind of seeing this happen, and I'm just really liking this capability for
yeah.
that flexibility. Yeah.
One thing that I enjoyed early on when we could first join a Teams meeting and present from a mobile device was being able to share screens. And so we don't quite have the detail yet around exactly what we can present. So we can make some assumptions. What can I do when I present to people within a Teams meeting? I can share a PowerPoint. I can share my webcam or video, and I can actually share my screen. And that's something that you can do from an iPhone as well. Is fire that up, and it's a bit like screen recording. You go into a mode and you can show that. Now, can we do all three of those things if we're joining that production environment for a live event? I would hope so, because that's bringing that full experience, but in a mobile sense, that I can be presenting from wherever I can get a really good internet connection. And that's actually one of the other big points there, Daniel. Did you see in the message that for having decent quality, it calls it video when it's actually referring to webcam, you have to have it will come through as 720p, but you have to have at least 2000 kbps bit rate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which is, I guess 2 meg is the way I would reference that. But that is not, it seems doable. You remember that's upload. It's not download. So that's upload. Got to remember that.
Mm-hmm.
It seems doable for most people. But if you're using like 4G or something, you're
Yeah.
using you're not getting it. And I don't remember the rates for LTE, but yeah, you've got to be mindful of that requirement.
Yeah. You know where I wouldn't be doing that? is
By the
is
water where you have seagulls coming and
Well, there is that. No, I was thinking more about a community theatre in a very, very, very busy, noisy, radio signaled Microsoft Ignite floor. Yeah, so that struggles with good bandwidth for just
Mhm.
regular presenting from a laptop, let alone an iPad.
That's
But
right.
anyway, this is expected to be rolled out late January 2021, and let's get on with the next one. Hey Daniel, have you had a look at shifts?
I have. But I think you missed a great opportunity there to play off of tag teaming and, tag I meant.
You're a dad,
I
aren't
just
you? Oh,
Anyway, Shift's app groups will automatically have a tag in Teams. This is MC228393. This is all about the Shifts app. If for those of you that use it in Teams, you probably love it because of your application. Those that maybe are not familiar with it, this is all about being able to designate and use manage, I guess, your shifts of employees. This is really those frontline or those retail or those that are managed by shifts, even medical profession or manufacturing or whatever. So this is that app. We're going to be able to, it's going to tag those people in shifts automatically, which gives you some cool capabilities. The capability here is I'm going to be able to message, at mention a tag, and it's going to send that message to all of those people. So if I at mention someone in the thread, then it's going to, tag them and they'll get a pop-up for that. Or if I'm going to send a message and I want to at mention that tag, then I'll be messaging everyone in that shift. So there are some limitations I'll talk about in a second, but I think this is actually some functionality that a lot of people have been asking for in this realms, because if I have my groups of people in shifts, how do I communicate with them effectively as a shift, such as being able to send a message to everyone in that shift, be mindful of this thing that's happening. Remember that we're doing X today, so make sure that you're you're watching your numbers, whatever it is, right? Being able to just ping those people, ping everybody to say, here's what's happening. So here are some limitations to this. First of all, your tag needs to be 40 characters or less, and that includes all of the characters that you're using, so spaces and everything else. You can only add 25 people when you're adding members. You can only add 25 at a time, and you have a limit of 100 people per tag. So if your shift is more than 100, then you're going to have to think about how you're going to split that up. So that's kind of unfortunate there. And then remember, you can only have 10 tags per member per team. So if you're thinking about using this in a different way than shifts, or one way this could come into play is if you have 3 shifts a day and there's 7 days a week, and someone is working extra shifts, or they just have more than 10 shifts in there normally, then you might get in trouble here because you won't be able to put them in every one of those, tag them appropriately for every shift. So we've got to be a little creative or mindful of that right now with those limits. This is rolling out early December. Well, we're here in early December, so soon, and it should be completed by mid December. What do you think about this, Darrell? This automatic tagging and applying tags like this in Teams?
I think it's crucial for those that are scheduling these shifts and trying to get people together to man the effort, really. Because it's automatic, it means that, one, you don't have to go through a list and say, well, who am I on shift with? Who do I need to communicate with? It's just, I'm on this shift. So if I need to make people aware of what's happening on that shift, got to send out a message, got to ask for help, then I just hit up the tag and there it is. Around those limitations, I think that some of those are going to manage themselves simply because the service is automatic. I think that's good, that if you have been shifted or moved from one shift to another, or you've been added to another shift and then you've got a week off, all of that add and move and change stuff is going to happen automatically, because all your manager has to do is add you to a shift or take you off it. But I do see, while they're listing that there's limitations, there's this thing that in the back of my mind, we've got information architecture and we've got to plan out how we put things together for SharePoint sites and files and all that kind of stuff. More and more we're seeing this need for having a collaboration architecture where we're thinking of these limitations right down to naming a shift. And that name of the shift has to fit in 40 characters so that it doesn't screw up the tag service in the background. So that's what people are going to have to start being thoughtful of as they think, well, we've been using shifts for a while. How do we change it up a bit to fit inside the service?
Well, and you mentioned that whole tag. What if the name is longer than 40 characters? Is it just going to truncate it? I don't know. We're not told here. But think about it this way. If you've not been, just like you were just saying, if you haven't been mindful of really your information architecture and your metadata, and you've named your shifts things like the name of the business and then the location, and that location is beyond the 40 characters, then what's going to happen with these tags? They're going to be truncated and everyone's going to have the same name, and maybe it's going to put a 1 on it or something. So this is the time to go back and look at your names of your shifts and go, okay, is this going to work as a tag, or is this going to be reasonable within that limit? So, yeah. So, Darrell, I would like to really talk about more of what to use when. We always like those conversations of where do we communicate with our people, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And we've seen quite a lot of work over the past few years around modernizing, getting news across within SharePoint, and it's a gorgeous experience. I really enjoy being able to show people how to get confident with creating a page and adding treating it like just writing a blog post and adding rich kind of video and pictures and stuff to tell your story and get it out there. Well, this update, send SharePoint pages to Yammer, is very welcome. Now, it might come across as being quite simple and like, yeah, okay, should have had it for a while. But I think it's really good to see. MC2288391, send SharePoint pages to Yammer. The goal here is that if you are creating a page, news page, or you have read something that's a SharePoint news page, you can share directly to Yammer. So we will have a send to, or underneath the existing send to button where we can send things to email, we'll have a Yammer option. And when you send to Yammer, then it's going to create a new post in the community that you choose. You'll have a rich thumbnail so you can see the content. And that's been, to be honest, let's pause there, Daniel. It's been a while since we've actually seen a decent rich thumbnail in Yammer. Yes. We had these crusty long links come through from SharePoint. And well, they are. Look, I mean, they're just not attractive. People have had to get really creative. Internal comms have had to take a screenshot of something and attach it and go, look at this. This is what I'm referring to.
I agree. So this combination of SharePoint and the modern Yammer, or whatever they're calling, what is it? The new Yammer is the way they're referring.
That's it. The new modern, yeah.
The new modern 2020 Yammer, whatever.
This year,
the year of. It is, with that combination, it is, I think, really what we expect from this experience of, I'm adding a link. When you do this in social media, when you do it, various applications, including email now, right? Actually, we've been able to do that for a long time. We're now getting a preview of the content, and it's great. It's about time, but I am glad it's there. The conversation, I think, is, for your organization, you're going to have to think about, why would you do this? And I don't mean, why would you click this button? I mean, why are you creating news in SharePoint to then share in Yammer? And I don't mean Yammer's bad, why would you ever use it? That's not what I'm saying. But if you don't use Yammer at all, then you got to think about, this is coming, and that people are going to be able to click it and they're going to share it in Yammer. What governance do you have around Yammer, and where should people be posting this, and all of that is, I think, crucial for right now. So if you're not using Yammer, you're about to, probably, because somebody's going to find that link and go, oh, what's this Yammer thing? I'll post it there and see what happens. I just had this conversation with a client last week. We're putting an intranet in for them, and it's going to be this fancy thing, and it's going to be great. And they're talking about having conversations on the pages of certain pages. What conversation are they going to have there? Well, Yammer was one of the options we discussed. They have it, but they don't use it. It's like, well, how are you going to roll it out just so you can have it on a page? Then, there's a lot of governance conversations that have to go along with it. Same here. You're sending content to it. Who's consuming it? How are you educating people on how to use it? Instead of having them click around, are they posting to the all company feed rather than appropriate? I mean, yada, 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 right?
Yeah.
Don't mean to go on and on, but I think that
fair comment, though.
You know what I mean? This is one of those times where you can't just say, oh, this is a great SharePoint feature.
Yep.
Yes, but it's more about Yammer.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think, like I said, fair point. It is raising that question again of, if you're not using Yammer, is this the time to turn it on and start using it? And if you are, then you do need to have some other considerations. Getting in a, community of practice? No, what is it? Like a code of conduct for, this is how you can conduct yourself within. It's interesting that people insist on having that in an enterprise social conversation engine, but they don't ask for a code of conduct in team or email. I think the whole thing is covered by the same thing if you're signing that. One thing I'd like to mention too, like, it does look a bit benign. Okay, great, thumbnail, so what? But they do mention that over and above being able to attach a link which comes through with this rich, thumbnail, that you can turn that into a Q&A. You can turn it into a poll, can turn it into praise. So it starts to enrich it even more so. And of course, you've got rich text in Yammer too. So that's send SharePoint pages to Yammer, coming mid-December for targeted release and standard release, complete by end of January. And Daniel,
Yes, Darrell.
this one I think is going to be interesting to look at, because to be honest, some of this stuff hasn't even arrived yet and they're already changing it.
Mhm.
Tell us about
Yes,
it.
this is Microsoft Teams profile menu update, relocating profile menu links to a new menu in the title bar. And they're doing this. So, okay, let's take a step back. And actually, the message has a great visual that Darrell alluded to. Hey, wait a minute, mine doesn't look like this. No, it doesn't.
Should we look at that now?
Yeah, we can, but basically they're taking a few of these controls that if you in Teams click on your picture, the me menu is what they're calling it, although I'm not entirely sure I remember it being referenced. Is that a new thing? Anyway,
I haven't
so the me menu gives you now what they think it gives you in this screenshot is the ability to click on accounts and orgs and then see all of the organizations so you can switch between tenants. Well, as most of you know, that is a completely separate thing in Teams right now. In the menu system, you see the org that you're on right now, the tenant, and you click that and you see your tenants options and you select which tenant you want to switch to. We brought this account and orgs in as part of this whole bringing in personal accounts. And we talked about this on the show previously, that they were going to do this. It's just, it hasn't been rolled out yet. However, here's a screenshot saying this is the current version, which it's the current future version. Maybe they're just going to do both of these at the same time. Yeah, I don't have it, and I'm on targeted release. So anyway, so they're going to remove the Zoom option, which is interesting. When I read that, I went, Zoom in a Teams meeting? Anyway, you know, Zoom, sorry, bad joke. They're removing the Zoom options as well as the Zoom controls, you know, percentages, the keyboard shortcuts, about information, and then check for updates for Teams. And they're going to move that to it's a vertical ellipsis, a stacked dot, and this is something that I think you're going to have to maybe come figure out for your organization what you're going to call that. There's a lot of options out there, but they're going to create a new menu where you click on it and it's going to give you those options.
That's those three dots there, right? But
yeah, the three dots, the three stacked vertical dots. Yeah. I want to, first of all, I want to say I actually like this, bringing those settings type of controls out of the me menu. I think makes perfect sense, right? So that when you go to that me menu, it is about me. I'm going to switch accounts. I'm going to have those settings for me, for my accounts, to manage that. And it's all about me. And then the other settings are the ones that are about the system. So this is more of a system menu for settings for Teams itself. So I'm liking this. However, the two comments I had was, one, yes, the preview that they're showing in the message, we don't even have this functionality yet with the accounts and orgs and bringing that all into one menu. So, and the second is that, it will require a little bit of training, I think, especially for those in support. Users will probably figure it out if they can figure out that stack dot. What is that? But you want your first line of support, even second line, to be very familiar with the way things are changing, because you don't want to be saying, okay, click on your profile picture and then go to check for updates or about, and they're going to do it and that's not there. I don't know what you're talking about, right? So you want to make sure that your training is up to date for that. But I'm also excited about the whole, I think, reorganizing this menu system where the tenant and then the me menu is now going to be the stacked dots in the me menu. However, the problem I have with all of this, and I may have said this before when we talked about this change of account and orgs, is you will not be able to quickly look up in the top right and see which tenant you're in.
Yeah.
And that could
Well,
be a problem for, well, it says tenant name there. And
yeah.
yeah, and so you're kind of highlighting that in the video. Um, for everyone on the podcast can't see that. It says tenant name. So I'm hoping that it actually, I didn't think it was going to do that. So if it does that, then I'm fine.
Yep.
Everything's great. But if it doesn't say tenant name and then your profile picture, then we're in trouble, because for those of us that do have to switch tenants, that's very, very important. Um,
Can we
so,
make a request too, like while they're
oh
changing
yeah,
this whole experience? And I've
sure.
heard a few people say this before. Can we shift saved into the activity feed or somewhere there rather than it being kind of this side thing that we have still in this menu? I don't know.
I'd kind of like to have it, and if you're truly using this functionality in Teams to save those information, move it over in the left-hand rail
Yeah,
under notifications and all that. Move it
like
over
an
there.
app.
Yeah, like an app, so I can
Hmm.
get all of my information. I agree with you.
Hmm.
So I
Right.
don't even know that I said the number, so I'm going to say it. It's MC228368, and we're talking about a rollout happening late January. This is to standard release. This is interesting. It says timing rollout to standard release in late January and GCC. Yay for the government people in early February. It doesn't say anything about if where targeted release is going to happen.
Hmm.
It's just very interesting the way they're phrasing this. If it's just going to roll out to everybody, then why say standard release in timing? Just say rollout will be. So that'll be interesting to see if they update this message with, if is it timing for targeted earlier than that? Don't know, but
And what
so.
happens to those that haven't seen this menu at all? Do they just jump straight through to this
Yeah, so that is a
new?
great question. If you don't
Yeah.
have this accounts and orgs kind of menu system already, is it just going to be combined in all this? I think that would be
Mm,
great. That would be the best thing, so that we don't have to retrain everybody.
agreed.
So yeah. So thinking of change in Teams, Darrell, tell me, be my guest, and tell us all how this
Oh,
is going to happen.
yeah, and that makes me think of a certain Disney movie. Anyway, we're not getting sponsorship from them, so we will pause right there. This is the headline for this episode, and the key thing around this message: configuration change in guest access for Microsoft Teams. This is important because, like we see sometimes with services that roll out in Microsoft 365, they set things to a certain default, and usually it is about encouraging the use of that feature. And it's over to you as an admin to turn things off if you need to keep things under control. Now, the default for Microsoft Teams in this service is to have guest access turned off. That's your system default. And if you were to go there today as an admin, you will see a setting there called system default, and in brackets it's off if you haven't changed it. Now, if you have changed it, and as an organization you've said, we don't want to allow guest access at this point, we're going to figure out the governance, we're going to sort out what we want to do, let's just turn it off for now and get all those things in place before we start making a plan to turn guest access on. Then this message is not going to affect you. That's MC228482, by the way. We're doing really well with reading out the message numbers today, Daniel. Now, this is important because if you have not set a default, then the default is going to become turned on. Now, I say this with a bit of a mix on this because I've recently had to take a really, really close look at how guest access works for a couple of customers and tried to come up with some good ways of thinking about that. From if you want to be most permissive and allow people to go ahead and invite guests and be really collaborative, then train them up by all means, let them know the ramifications, but give them that option. Or range it down to being least permissive and have it fully controlled by IT and have a very stringent but laborious process to do so. This setting within Teams uh, is not just the only thing you have to enable to get guest access going. So while it does feel like, oh, you got to be careful, this is going to be the default, you actually have to have a few other things in place as well before you can invite guests into Teams. Are you familiar with this, Daniel?
Yes, and you do have to, there's steps. Just like I did a video, I don't know, it was about a year ago about how there's 3 steps to enable guest access in SharePoint. You can't, just do it once and there's 3 layers that you have to do it. It was tenant, SharePoint, and site. Well, same thing, here, you're right. It's not like it's going to automatically just open up the gates unless you've actually got those other steps already enabled for other things.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's going to be. That's the kicker. If you've decided intentionally to leave out Teams, meaning it's turned off by default, so you're not going to turn it on, but you've turned it on for other stuff, then that's where I think this is going to bite you. And so that's where you need to start paying attention to this one.
Yeah.
You need to, and it's something that was be talked about in the chat room about the previous message we were talking about. Teams has different settings, and there's all of these settings that are on by default, off by default. You turn them on with PowerShell. You don't it's in the UI. There's all of these different settings that I think you basically need to come up with a checklist of what are all of the things in Teams that you need to be mindful of when you're going to start using it, or you need to check in on probably every month to see what are the settings we have. And it's not just, like I said, in the UI, it's in PowerShell too. So it's complicated. And this is yet another one of those that just be careful. If you've enabled guest access in other areas, then this might actually be something you need to pay attention to. That's all.
Yeah, I want to just point you to a good resource to help you check through this. And if anything, this message about guest access being turned on by default should prompt you to just go through and review those settings. Now, apologies that I'm not showing it in a great fashion here, and for those on the podcast, it's a docs.com article which is titled Microsoft 365 Guest Sharing Settings Reference. Really, really good, because you can go through and you can see where I set it at the very top level in my Azure Active Directory. Where do I need to go to at least start allowing guest access? And as it filters down into things like at the organizational setting, relationship side of things, am I allowing sharing and guest access from a Microsoft 365 point of view, groups, teams, and then also going into other individual services like SharePoint, OneDrive, and etc. That's a great reference to look into to go through and just check your own settings to see what you have turned on or off, what you're planning to do. Does it align with your strategy for having guests? Now, we've said a lot about the setting being turned on or off. I do want to just briefly talk about the merits of guest access, because what I found as I've been looking a lot closer at it too and trying to help our customers govern this is when you are a guest, it really is really tied down. If you're invited into a team or a team site, it's not like you can get to a whole lot of other things and search for people and search for content you don't have permission to. I think there's more concern that when it's turned on, your people inside your organization as members of your org need to be mindful of they're now sharing something with a guest, a person's name. And that's where some training, some campaigns around adoption and change management to create that awareness will help you get a safe use out of guest access and guest collaboration in teams.
Well, and there's another option too, which is kind of, if you want to lock it down a little bit, you can make it to where guests have to be pre-provisioned.
Yeah.
Right. So that, it's not everyone in your organization inviting guests. It's they have to make a request, and it's just pre-provisioned in Azure Active Directory as a guest, and then that guest can be added to the team. So there's some controls there. So it's not, we can't just, it's not Wild West. Let's
definitely not.
Yeah.
But take advantage of it. Now, finishing off, Daniel, with this message. I don't have a hook for it. Just to say, translate it for me, please.
Nice. Introducing translation in Outlook for Windows. We'll get to that in a second. This is MC228685. And this should sound familiar, just even that if I say introducing translation in Outlook, because we talked about this last year, and but it was all about Outlook on the web or Outlook for web or whatever they're calling it these days. It's for that experience when you're using Outlook in your browser. You could have that capability of translating a message that you would receive. They're bringing this to Outlook for Windows or the Outlook app. I don't know why they call it those different things.
Isn't it just Outlook? I'm sure that's what the message they're pushing. This is just Office. Wait, it's not Office anymore.
No, it's not.
Microsoft 365 app.
Apps.
Sorry.
It's a Microsoft 365 app called Outlook. That's going to be the official name. Anyway, sorry, everyone. So basically, when Outlook will detect a message that is of a different language from your default, then it will offer to translate that message. Now, you can also do just words. It doesn't have to be the entire message. So this is going to act just like Outlook for the web, which it was rolled out last year in 2019. So this is, and again, timing, January 2021, current channel. Okay, does that mean there is a targeted, because we have current channel with Office, you can do get updates every month. You can get updates every 6 months. What is going on here? Rollout tenant level. This does not give me the information I need, but just know it's coming, and we'll find out more information about when it's coming. But there are ways to turn this off. I don't know a reason why you would. I mean, I do. Privacy. We don't want Microsoft reading our email. Well, it says no customer content will be sampled, which is the thing people are afraid of they're going to read our email, or stored with this new translation feature. It's being powered in your app. Okay, so this is not a we're sampling it to say, oh, look, as it comes through the Microsoft systems, they go, ooh, that's a message that's in Japanese and I'm delivering to an English person. I should translate this message for them and then send it to them. They're not doing that. That's not how this works. So they're doing it in accordance to their privacy rules and their privacy statement, which there's a link there. So please check it out. I really don't understand in this day and age why you would want to turn this off when really you can go, and if you don't allow it in the email client, people are just going to go copy and paste it in a browser translator with their favorite search engine, which may not be Microsoft's, which may be some other company that actually does store all of the information that is pasted in their translation service. So people are going to get around this if you don't allow them to do this. So just be mindful of that. You might lose control of your data even if you turn this off. So I say leave it on. The other thing is, if you're using the translator for Outlook add-in, it's not going to override that. So this is where you might need some training. If you're using that add-in or allowing users to use that add-in, then it's going to work in tandem. They're both going to be there. So maybe have people switch and stop using that add-in and then disable the add-in.
Translate the translation?
Right, translate the translation. So do you have anything to add, Darrell, about the translating?
No, not at all. Like you, I think that it's a useful thing to leave turned on. It's enabling people to communicate better with people across the organization and people that are sending them content from a language that is not their own. Phil Worrell points out that we probably need to have a good translation from US English to UK English. I would say the same thing from New Zealand English to Australian and vice versa. It's just
what we say in America is translate from proper English to the Queen's English. It's just a joke. People don't hate on me. But thank you very much for those that are in the chat room for joining us today. We have several. Really appreciate you joining us. And make sure that you catch the podcast audio version if that is your cup of tea, or if someone else doesn't want to do video, they want to do podcast, make sure you send them to messagecenter.show.
All right. Well, thanks again. And we'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.